previously on the Irish NFL show.
110 plus yards in 9 games this season. So I think the Giants will lean very much on Gallman and Morris to run the ball, allow the defense to do their thing. And I'm going to pick the Giants to win, obviously.
A few moments later.
I am so sorry. I had to do something, and I thought, why not? I can see your face. You're obviously not happy, but I had to.
Will I just go now then, will I?
I almost choked on my tea.
Here, lads, obviously welcoming everybody to MNF IRE from the Irish NFL show in partnership with Pundit Arena. Join with Colin, join with Mark, and of course, join with Brian. Brian, we'll start with you, man. Hard luck last night. I feel for you. I had to do that, but I feel for you.
Well, there was no hard luck in it. In fairness, we were well beaten. We were well taken care of. Daniel Jones didn't look himself at all. Not that yesterday he thought he'd be the one that would win us the game, but he was sacked 6 times. He couldn't get off his back foot for any throws. There was no run-pass options in the playbook. He wasn't ready to play the game, but they took a chance to back for it. Defense played well enough for 3 quarters. But we move on. It's just disappointing. But at the same time, it's not over yet. Still games to come.
Still plenty of games to go. Although I suppose with the 3 of us in here, I can feel, the only one feeling somewhat smug this week, though. I've been watching this game long enough to know that that's unlikely to last for too long. I felt that this was a really interesting Sunday of action. Mark, was there anything that stood out to you from yesterday's games?
Yeah, I mean, Colin, sometimes in life you feel like you're merely mortal, and sometimes watching NFL games and seeing the athletic feats that the players pull off, you suddenly realize, I in my dreams I could do that, but I couldn't really. So whether it's someone as powerful as Chase Young picking up a ball and sprinting 50 yards down the sideline for a defensive touchdown, or other feats of athletic brilliance, it was purely the individual brilliance this weekend. So A.J. Brown, an amazing catch down the sideline for the Titans' first touchdown. And then you've got 3 amazing defensive interceptions, mostly one-handed. Marcus May, Kenny Moore from the Colts, and then also Xavier Howard, of course, from the Dolphins. So you look at those 3 plays. If you're looking for YouTube clips, if you're looking for highlights as to why we love this sport, why mere mortals cannot play this, they're the things that stand for me is just sheer moments of brilliance.
Talking about mere mortals, Patrick Mahomes threw 3 interceptions. He took a sack of 30 yards. I still don't know where exactly he was running to. And yet the Chiefs, just did Chiefs things, found ways to win. And again, just are able to move through those gears effortlessly. It seems. It doesn't seem to matter how well the teams they're play against. I mean, the Dolphins started off yesterday so well on defense. You talked about that one-handed interception. Brian, can anyone stop this Chiefs team?
I don't believe it. I don't believe so. Like you've touched on it there, they're kind of playing in second gear, even third gear at times. The Dolphins got out to a good start. We're starting to think that maybe Michael had a point and the Dolphins would pull off the section in the end. They were dominant come 4th quarter. Once the Dolphins came back, you couldn't see the Chiefs messing it up. And you look at the schedule coming up, and now they're in the position that I thought they'd be come the end of the weekend, which is the number 1 season potentially now. We've got a really difficult game, I would think, next week, because you would expect a reaction from the Saints on the back of that defeat by the Eagles. But you still have to expect the Chiefs to win that game. And I'm not sure who's going to beat them in the AFC. Certainly, Super Bowl obviously on a one-off. It's a different scenario, but I don't see anybody in the AFC. And I know Michael loves the Bills, and the Bills are having a great season. I don't think anybody's going into Arrowhead and beating them.
Colin, if I could add one point, the biggest angst for Chiefs fans at the moment is 2 weeks in a row now, their defense has almost messed up a 3-score lead in the fourth quarter. And there's a bit of noise about, we weren't playing very well and we let the team back into it. The fact they had a 3-score lead in the fourth quarter in the last 2 games is what they should be focusing on.
Yeah, I think it's funny I suppose there'll always be something, and that's the beauty of this game as well. We don't have Michael to talk about his beloved Bills, but that was quite the statement performance last night. Going against the Steelers, who are certainly wobbling after 2 victories. If the one against Washington was all about, Washington's defense, like punching them in the mouth, the Bills' offense, really came to life, particularly in that second half. Diggs was outstandingly good as he can be, and he's such a talented wide receiver. Mark, what with absent of Michael and what he has to say, what do you think this Bills team is capable of?
Well, I've maintained the line throughout the season that the reason the Bills will make the playoffs and win the AFC East quite comfortably is the improvement of Josh Allen. But the reason the Bills won't win the Super Bowl is also the fact that their quarterback is Josh Allen. And I'm just waiting for the natural implosion. What I can't get over is he had a couple of wobbly games mid-season, but he's performing extremely well again. Sean McDermott is on full cylinders in terms of how he's organized both the offensive and defensive strategy. I thought actually their defensive strategy in containing the Steelers, taking the lessons from that Washington game and frustrating them throughout, even though they had James Conner back, was magnificent, frankly. And offensively, they took advantage. We called it out that Bud Dupree is missing. So it was very much a case of, well managed, Mr. Watt Jr., and you should be onto a winning strategy. And so it proved. They had a little bit of inconsistency in the run game, but the offense was ticking. And do you know what, Colin? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if the Bills do perform like that, they can be that team. They do need that offense, though, because they do need that offense to click to beat the Chiefs of this world, if that's truly their ambition. But a superb performance. Like, there's nothing really negative. I'd love to find it. I'd love to find some negative to say about it. But the Bills Mafia should be very happy and very sated today.
If you're a Steelers fan, sorry, Colin, I was just going to say, if you're a Steelers fan at this stage, you must be, whilst you're on a very good record, you must be slightly concerned about the frailties that have shown up on the offense in the past 3 games. The Ravens last week against the Washington football team, and then obviously this weekend, they didn't put a lot together in that game. You'd have to wonder, come playoff time, if you can't flick the switch and get it all back again. So they've got some. I think they got the Colts coming up as well, which should be a tough one.
Yeah, I suppose the thing that stands out also is that with that win last night, the Bills ensured that the Patriots won't be winning the divisional title for the first time in 11 years. It is quite the record. But Brian, you touched on it there, the game against the Colts, and the Colts had a very impressive win over the Raiders yesterday. Did you get to watch any of that game, and what were your takeaways, if any, from that?
Takeaways is how comfortable Rivers is starting to look in that offense. The start of the season in particular, I was very negative about him. Didn't feel he'd be the man to bring them forward, and was everybody keeps talking about this great Colts team that could potentially go all the way and challenge the Chiefs. I felt Rivers wouldn't be up to it. He just looked last year like he was an Asian quarterback. But as the games have gone on, and I know they're fortunate, they've got a good run game. Jonathan Taylor came back last week, and yesterday he looked superb in the game. And then, they were going against the Raiders defense that are giving up 30 plus points a game on average. So it's hard to hard to a certain extent to say this is really a great performance. But at the same time, they're keeping in check with the Titans, and that's what they have to do, because the Titans still have to go to the Packers in a fortnight. You could see them potentially losing that game, and that could be where the Colts step in and win the division. But at the same time, that weekend, they've got the Steelers, which will be a massive game. But in fairness to Rivers, he's doing it. He keeps proving me wrong every week. Ah,
Hey, look at that.
You know what
magic.
that was? I think that was Brian wishing bad luck at me after what
You know,
happened there.
that was karma for you. I'm delighted that happened to you.
Because it just shut off completely. The whole website, everything shut off. But my Wi-Fi just completely went down. What are we talking about? And I'll give my expert opinion based upon the fact that the Bills, the Eagles, and all won yesterday, boys. I mean,
We've all already talked about the Bills. We don't have to talk about them. We were just talking about the Colts, and I was just going to add 2 words. Well, Brian mentioned Jonathan Taylor, but like I say, the interception again, feats of brilliance, just beautiful to see. And yeah, we hang on to the Eagles, Michael. So maybe you want to be smug and rub in your expert opinion on that one.
can I say one thing about the Bills before we move on? I made the stupid decision to stay up late, and like that. This is me today. I've like there's a picture of me doing the rounds at 4 a.m., which I know Brian might be able to use for leverage next week. So maybe that could be put on to the internet in some way. But
Scared
boys, just again.
I scared one of my children tonight when I showed it.
Yeah, Michael, don't worry. Josh Allen jersey's in the post.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's a big game next weekend. I'll not be wearing one because we're wearing a Broncos jersey. But like at the end of the day, the Bills are the team to beat in the AFC, as far as I'm concerned. They're the team that looks the most fresh. They really turned it around after a slow start last night. And the only thing they really have to worry about, in my opinion, is running back. If they can get that sorted, they're going to win the AFC, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, big up to my man Diggs.
Michael, just a quick one. I think you need to put up a ticker saying that you do follow the Denver Broncos, because I had a text from a chap today saying looking forward to hearing the Bills fans' reaction to the win last night. So, and then he said they have a tough one as well this weekend against the Broncos.
I do support the Denver Broncos, but I can appreciate a team that has brought in a quarterback like Allen, has built around him, and they've taken their time. And I know Colin would appreciate that as well. It takes time. Greatness takes time. And that Bills team looked fresh, boys. They made that Pittsburgh Steelers team look like Lidl last night. Come on.
So, Michael, if you appreciate that they develop a quarterback and build around them, surely then you appreciate Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, who are the de facto favorite.
Let's see. And the beautiful thing about it, like, we haven't got long to wait now until the playoffs, baby. So it's all good. But a big night, lads, for Diggs. Like, Diggs was really impressive last night. And one guy that didn't show up for me because I sat there like a loner watching it, Claypool, really poor last night. I thought didn't come into the game at all, really. I think he had a couple of receptions, but yeah. Sorry, I know you guys I've already talked this, but I had to get my Buffalo Bills moving in for the week, boys. I'm sorry. Will we? Do you want me to take the reins again? Like, I mean, will we talk about the fly, Eagles, fly?
Oh, I think we absolutely should, because that is developing into an amazing story. I mean, the Eagles, who were so at sea, and then you have the young QB comes in, Wentz's contract, which everyone is wondering what they're going to do. How much are they going to have to eat on that? A lot of talk about the Colts and whether they'll look at that, but they went against the Saints, who were holding opponents to 17 points or fewer, and they were. It was the best of the Eagles. It was everything that the Eagles that got them that Super Bowl win. They were really aggressive, going for it on fourth down. I suppose Hill finally faced a defense that actually put real pressure on him. But in fairness, I mean, the Saints did try and come back into it. But the Eagles, for me, what was really impressive was they didn't wilt at any stage. So I gotta say that if you were looking at it, and I still think there will be questions asked in the front office, but I think the Eagles can take some heart from the fact that this team hasn't quit on their coach, certainly.
Brian, obviously looking at this Eagles team from a Giants viewpoint, but even from a general NFL viewpoint, does this remind you of Rocky 2? When he was told to go and win, and he really took it by the horns and ran through Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts, and has really proved people wrong. I would almost go as far, Brian, to say if this was week 10 and the Eagles weren't, starting to run out of games, would you be sweating a wee bit more than maybe right now?
No, because having watched Kyler Murray yesterday and how he looked back to himself, in terms of running around the pitch, I'd imagine he'll be doing the exact same thing to Philadelphia next week in the desert. So this week of momentum that'll build up in Philadelphia, out our back, we've got the quarterback of the future. Yeah, the bubble will be burst again by next weekend.
Okay.
I'm not even going there, Michael.
It's all good. Mark?
The bitterness is strong.
Leroy.
The bitterness is strong. It's fun. Look, Philadelphia deserve a lot of credit. They have been abject at best times this season. Their linebacker play, I think I called out a couple of weeks ago, has been extremely poor. I mean, the middle linebackers were basically a joke on anything involving play action. And against a team like a Saints, where there's a lot of motion, there's a lot of different possibilities with someone like Hill at quarterback, they were dominating. They were blocking down everything. They were daring him to beat him with his arm, and he couldn't. And they played a very, very disciplined game, as did Carson Wentz. There you go. As did Jalen Hurts. Very disciplined game. Ran when it was appropriate to do so. Came out throwing at the right times, and did not look overawed by the circumstance. We flagged he's had a big career in college football. Seemed very comfortable in the scenario, and now you alluded to it last week, Michael. I mean, what do they do with or Brian as well, the $33 million in the cap for Carson Wentz next year, or $52 million if they cut him? It starts to become difficult. I mean, one game, let's take it slowly, but he looks very polished, very accomplished, and maybe hope springs eternal for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Can I just make one point on the Saints? It's like, obviously it's a disappointing win for the Saints because they've had to give it up the number 1 seed, but there's been a lot of talk that Breeze isn't needed, because because the quarterback had been Taysom Hill had been doing reasonably well, but I think last night proves again that, you can do without a good player for 2 or 3 games, but longevity, you need to get them back sooner rather than later. I think if Breeze played that game last night, when they got to the end of the third quarter and they're back in, I think Breeze would have drove them on to win the game. So be interested to see if he comes back next week against the Chiefs.
And even... Sorry, go on ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, keep him out a week. They already mooted the idea that they'd keep him out another week to get healthy. This is so much of the echoes of Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler. I'm sure you two gentlemen will remember that, how that worked out quite well. But Breeze needs the rest, needs to recover correctly, give him the extra week. I don't think they're beating the Chiefs anyway, and then bring him back for the stretch run.
Colin, I may have missed this, but did we talk about the best quarterback performance of the day? Yes or no? Any other answer? Yes?
No.
All right. I didn't mean to click that again. I'm sorry. But Drew Lock with 4 passing touchdowns on Sunday even surprised me, to be honest with you. The Broncos beat the Panthers to go 5-8. Colin, yeah.
Mm-hmm. 5-8, yeah.
Obviously, Colin, would we be top of the NFC East if we had won that? Or that's... I mean, it's a nothing win for us because it doesn't really matter at the minute, does it? So it's like...
We play in the AFC West, where the other QBs are Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, whose team also managed to find a way to win yesterday. Look, the Broncos were good, especially on the road. To get 32 points as a Broncos fan is pleasing. First time really seeing this Carolina team this year. Some really nice parts to it, but if I was a Panthers fan, Teddy Bridgewater wants an eternity to throw that ball. He just hangs onto it for forever and ever. But the Broncos with an interesting 3 games, the opportunity to potentially derail the Raiders playoff push, which as a Broncos fan is probably the only thing left to cling to this season.
Brian, I think you want to say something there. I can see it in your face, man. What's up?
And I was just going to tell you, I'm not sure if you've heard of this show. I tend to drop in and watch it every now. It's called Broncos Europe. And the guy who hosts it is continuously throwing Lock under the bus. But then this morning, I just noticed on his social media page, he was actually saying, God, have you got the quarterback of the future? It's just unbelievable. It's so Jekyll and Hyde, from one week to the next. You should check it out. Check it out. It's quite funny at times.
You should definitely check it out. I mean, that's free promotion on the sponsor show. So thank you very much, and we really appreciate that. Obviously, three-time Super Bowl champion
The other chap,
5 years
Harlan, is
ago.
more grounded. He has a sense for that on his shoulders.
Look, guys, I don't want to pussyfoot around this. The reality is that Drew Lock is just making your 2021 season screwed up before it even starts, because he's giving the fan base a reason to believe and saying maybe he's savable. Maybe we can get something. Maybe it's just like Josh Allen, and you'll go in as a starting quarterback next year and still not convinced, still in no way convinced, still don't believe. But I do want to pivot to someone I do think we should give a lot more credit to, because the four of us were very dismissive of it on the show on Sunday, is the Chicago Bears and their offense, which instead of once of being offensive, actually turned up and performed. David Montgomery, obviously, with an 80-yard run. Mitch Trubisky performed and played. And, I mean, God only knows, if you're a Bears fan this year, the roller coaster you've been on has been something else. But I want to call out, next week is going to be a really interesting game. Bears versus Vikings. And with the Cardinals stumbling in the wildcard race, the winner of that game has a legitimate chance to sneak in as the 7th seed. And actually, Bears fans, because you deserve a bit of succor after the abuse you've had for your 6-game losing run, you beat the Vikings. I definitely think they can win one of their last 2 games, break 500, and potentially sneak into that place. That would be some turnaround based on what they've seen already. But a great performance by them at the weekend. It shouldn't go unnoticed.
Do you know the problem? Sorry, Michael, go on.
No, go on ahead. This is probably different.
The problem with that, Mark, is in week 17, the team they're up against is the Green Bay Packers, who will be going for the number 1 seed. So, they might find some trouble there.
I said win one of the last 2 after the Vikings game. I didn't say which one, Brian.
The only way Green Bay is going to Tampa, boys, is if they're going on holiday to watch the game in the hotel.
Ooh,
I don't. Even Colin's got the colours on already.
We will see about that, because in fairness, Matt LaFleur has done an absolutely stellar job there. And given what's happened in Dallas, Aaron Rodgers, there might be a lot more to people were very quick to dismiss it when he had quite a few words to say about Mike McCarthy when he left the building, and just Rodgers' ego. But given what they've done over the last couple of years, he really has been impressive. And last night, they were very, very good against local rivals. I mean, the Lions showed about the difference a head coach makes as well, because with Patricia out of the building, they look revitalized completely. One point what I think is interesting is how you can use stats in different ways. Mitch Trubisky has more wins as a quarterback than Deshaun Watson. Now, which of those would you take as your QB if you were building a team?
I think the Bears fans are still kind of reading from that draft in which both players were drafted. So I think any Bears fan tomorrow would be happy to take Deshaun Watson in their team.
I mean, just to talk about what I said about the Packers there. I mean, if the Packers are Dublin, right? I mean, they've played Carlow, Kildare, Laois, Longford live. Let's wait till they get a proper challenge in the playoffs. Colin, a little bit of breaking news. We're talking about the Broncos here. Brandon McManus is a close contact, COVID-19. Planning to play on Sunday, but he has isolated as of 21 minutes ago. So he was awful yesterday. But we all know.
The one thing I'll say there as well, though, how refreshing to see a player come on social media immediately after the game and hold their hand up and say, "Yep, terrible game for me."
Yeah, but also don't be too hard on McManus. He wasn't half as bad as Dan Bailey was, which was pretty atrocious, in fairness. And his 2nd game in a row, and I think he's already been cut this morning. I definitely thought I saw something on the wire in relation to it.
Well, he's no Rodrigo Blankenship, gentlemen. Rodrigo Blankenship. If you're joining us for the first time, especially on Facebook, we've got shows on Monday, on Sunday, and on Thursday. Had to use the fancy graphic, boys. I'm sorry. But there is a game tonight. I presume we haven't talked about it yet.
No, not yet.
My wife. Yes,
Michael, sorry, before we get to that game, we did touch on the Colts Raiders game, but we haven't touched on the fact that the Raiders defensive coordinator has been let go today, shall we say. So there's whispers of Wade Phillips potentially coming in as the new defensive coordinator. So when you go to knock them out of the playoffs, I'm sure Wade Phillips will have a nice plan in place.
I'll tell you what we'll do, Colin. I'll tell you what we'll do. Will we give Wade a wee call right now? Yeah.
It's either that.
Will we give him a wee call right now? Yeah. Will we give him a call right now? Yeah. Will we FaceTime him right now and ask him?
We have been, what Michael is referring to is we have been fortunate to talk to the wonderfully talented defensive coordinator previously. If he goes to the Raiders, he will do an instantaneous job on them because they do have talent. Their biggest issue, I think, is channeling that aggression that they have. And he did an amazing job with Aqib Talib and TJ Ward, Danny Trevathan. Like the Broncos in 2015 had guys who wanted to, absolutely smash you. And he managed to channel that. So I think if the Raiders were to get him, that's an amazing upgrade for them.
When it's
two quick things. One is I still think it's his Twitter handle, Son of Bum, is always still my personal favourite, obviously being the son of the legendary coach, Bum Phillips. And the fact that Michael cared enough to mask his phone number, because this is a live show, with his own bank card and the details on that is something quite spectacular.
It's the back of the card.
Thank you for that, Michael.
It's the back of the card. It's all good.
Colin,
anyway.
Colin, sure, look, it could be worse. They might just go after Greg Williams because I think they owe him a favour from last week's game against the Jets. Give him
it's a beautiful time of the year. The Raiders are starting to self-implode again, and this is a lovely cycle. The Broncos call and play the Raiders week 17. Yeah, so that'll be a nice game for the brethren. But we're going to shut up about the Broncos right now, lads, for a little bit. Let's try and get Wade Phillips on the show next week for a laugh. Will we do it? For a bit of crack? We'll see. I'm sure Mark will have a few metaphors to say to him about bums and Mayo poems, stuff like that there. Anyway,
having seen some of his press conferences and his father's press conferences, it's more his metaphors are more entertaining than anything else, Michael.
I have to say his book is excellent. Son of Bum, out in all good Eason's. Is Eason still open? Yeah. No. Anyway, MNF IRE is all about tonight's game. It is the Cleveland Browns against the Baltimore Ravens. So Baker Day, I don't know if that's a thing in the South. Is it? Do you have Baker Days? No. We've got Baker Days in schools in the North. I've never felt so less Irish in my life here, boys. But anyway, Baker Mayfield. Let's look at the Browns first of all. Baker Mayfield really turned it around the season, Colin, to an extent from where he was last year. I'm not saying he's the MVP candidate, but a big change for him. What's your opinion been of the Browns so far this season, Colin? And what do you make of their chances tonight?
The Browns are an interesting team, right? Because they have been kind of transformed. I mean, they had a 38-6 blowout loss to the Ravens earlier in the year, and through that opening kind of 7 weeks, they were in all sorts of trouble in terms of their offensive line and things, trying to get things to click and to work. But they've managed to put the pieces back together really since week 7. The line has really held strong. And although, and we talked about it a few weeks ago, Mayfield had some really poor games, really poor games, which, not helped probably by the weather in Cleveland. But they have found ways to win, and that's what good teams do. I mean, you don't have the record they do if you're not a decent team. They have their weaknesses, definitely, and if you can stop their running game and put it on Mayfield, then he really has to show he can do it consistently. He was excellent last week against the Titans. He put the team on his back himself, and then the only thing you'd say is defensively. They put so much into stopping Derrick Henry, they kind of forgot about Ryan Tannehill, and he put up enormous numbers, but they were so far ahead at that point that it was no good. Really, though, if Mayfield clicks and if their two runners, click, they are a serious offensive unit.
Yeah, well, I've been reading quite a few reports recently that the Browns this season, once they have a great record, hadn't really beaten anyone of note. They were winning the games that they should be winning based on the schedule, but they hadn't beaten anybody, say marquee or any teams that were needing challenging in the AFC. Obviously, last week, you'd have to still question if that really was a win against a marquee team, because the times can be a bit inconsistent. And fairness to them, they stacked up on Henry, but then the second half they didn't. Tannehill came back, but I think the game was out of reach. Mayfield has turned it around. He went 3 or 4 games without throwing a touchdown. He's now gone 5 games without throwing an interception, and he's thrown touchdowns again. But I still think he's inconsistent, and I wouldn't trust him to be my quarterback despite the realities that my team have.
Mark's on mute. Mark, you're on mute, my friend.
Take us up.
Sorry, it was probably Brian muting my mic because I was about to say, but he does trust Daniel Jones, who can't get across halfway.
I don't trust him either. I'm just saying Mayfield is inconsistent.
That's fair enough. I called this a couple of weeks ago. I said, look, the Browns this year are like the Three Musketeers: Chubb, Hunt, and Landry, or Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, whatever order you like, guys. But they need D'Artagnan, and Mayfield is D'Artagnan. He is that different factor. If he is on his game, they can be an super efficient offensive unit. If he plays like he's played for a lot of games this season, quite inconsistently, missing throws, fumbling from time to time and turning the ball over, then of course it's a very different ball game, and it's very different from the Browns. The reality, though, guys, and I almost keep having to say this to myself, like to remind myself it's not a dream or a nightmare, depending on your persuasion. The Browns are 9-3. Yes, they were absolutely obliterated by the Steelers earlier in the season and absolutely obliterated by the Ravens, but they have 9 wins on their record. And if they win this game tonight, now tiebreakers will come into the mix. They're only 1 game behind the Steelers now, having them going on a 2-game slide. So just project forward. If you're a Browns fan, you're looking for causes for optimism tonight. You say, well, if we beat the Ravens, we've basically sealed up the wild card, knocked the Ravens out of contention. If the Steelers slipped up against the Colts, say in Week 16, the Browns in the meantime have to play 2 games against New York teams. They're not going to be threatened by that. That's all I'll say, Brian. I'm not trying to provoke you. They're not going to be threatened by that. And that would lead to a monumental showdown in Week 17, potentially. So for Browns fans, there's like kind of almost hope now saying, hey, is the AFC North up for grabs? They've got to do the business tonight, though. They've got to show that first game against the Ravens was, an error in judgment, that they can bounce back and they can beat a quality side. But they have the talent. They're able to do this. Myles Garrett on defense, they can be something special here. The question is, do you want to take that step up to greatness?
Yes, everybody does, of course. Why not? Talking about greatness, Myles Garrett, I would love him in my team, man, to be honest. He's just so good. I can't believe the Browns are 9-5 or 9-3. Whoops. I can't believe the Browns are 9-3. The Ravens are 7-5. So it's nuts, and it's hard to believe there's a 2-game swing there, especially if you were sitting in January and somebody was going to say to you, there'd be a global pandemic, the Browns would be 9-3 and the Ravens would be 7-5, whatever that was going on. You wouldn't believe them for a second, pre-playoffs this year or last year. But the way that Baker Mayfield's came back this season, I think, is to be commended. I'm not saying he's playing at an MVP level, but he had 4 touchdowns last week. I mean, take that all day, boys. No interceptions either. So unreal. But I think the real X factor for this team, and something that could take them through the playoffs in a really good way, could be guys like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I don't want to go back on my beloved secondary team, the Buffalo Bills, but having Singletary there isn't enough for them at running back, and I think that's their key missing point to maybe win the AFC Championship. And I'm being completely serious. And I think the Browns, if they're going to make a playoff push, if they do get that playoff place, if they do lock up the division, if they win tonight, for example, if they really take that to the next level, they've got Chubb and they've got Kareem Hunt. And add Landry to that mix. I mean, Odell Beckham's injured out for the year, but Landry looks so clean, man. Donovan Peoples-Jones looks good as well. So on both sides of the ball, obviously with Garrett, Malcolm Smith as well, the team looks really good at both defense and offense. It's really a matter of how can they mix that, especially in the game like this. They can't go into a primetime game tonight and not give it a good go. If they go in and they do the same as what happened at the start of the season where they get blown out or beaten heavily, it's not going to wash with me. It's not going to wash with the casual fan either. So it's a big night for the Browns, and it's the most 2020 thing ever. But but they're playing Lamar. Lamar Jackson is back. You can see I edit very well because it says under that Buffalo March On. So I'm extremely sorry. There's my excuse. And my second excuse. Sorry, lads. But the Ravens are playing tonight 7-5. Colin, are you disappointed with how the Ravens have played so far this season?
Yeah, I think you'd have to say, given how they played last year, given the way in which they lost, given what they looked to do in the off season, you expected them to take the next step, but it hasn't happened. Especially since the beginning of November, they are 2-4. And that is obviously a concern. And one of those wins comes against the Cowboys last week, where they ran all over them. Basically everybody on the team got a go at running it. It was crazy to watch. I think they will be disappointed. I mean, the thing with the Ravens, though, is the talent is still there. So on any particular day, they could show up, and they're very strong defensively. It's always going to be tough to play against them, but they haven't clicked offensively this year in the way in which they did last year. Last year, every time it seemed like they needed to come up with something, Jackson would pull out a run, or he'd find Andrews in the end zone. It was just, they always had that X factor. This year they don't, and they're struggling to regain that. If it becomes a defensive game, they'll keep in it. But if the other team if the Browns can do what they did to the Titans, the Ravens are going to struggle to score a lot of points, I feel.
Yeah, I'm well sure we're all waxing lyrical about the Browns' run game. In fairness to the Ravens, they've got a top 5 running game this season. And I alluded to it last Thursday when we discussed the Rams and Patriots game. You get to a stage in the season where you look at your schedule, and Mark's looking at the scenarios that the Browns are looking at in terms of going forward. You look at what the Ravens have left. After this evening, they play the Jags next weekend. The following week, the Giants. And the following week, they're playing the Bengals. They have this in their own hands now. They win this game, realistically, they're going to win the last 3 games. They're going to lock up a wild card and potentially knock out the Dolphins or the Colts, depending on other scenarios. So it's a must win. You get to a stage of the season where you know you really have to win a game. And they've had the Browns number for quite some time. And I know the Browns haven't been the Browns that we're looking at this year, but they still took care of them in week 1 this season. And I think this game is more of a must win for the Ravens. And that's the reason why I'll be going with the Ravens tonight.
Yeah, it's funny, when you're climbing Mount Everest, that you get to base camp, you acclimatize. There's a whole technique against point 1, point 2, point 3. I mean, everybody knows about this, but basically there's key decisions to be made, actually, even if you're only 100 meters from the top, if you're being supported by oxygen, about do you have enough to get up there, get back down safely, or do you have to turn back? And the problem for the Ravens is they haven't had enough oxygen even to get to base camp 3 yet. They haven't even had the chance to think about that final summit because, frankly, not only have they not hit the heights on their offense, their defense hasn't hit the heights it hit at times last year. At times, that was one of the scariest defenses in all of football. And I'm not saying they're porous in any way, shape, or form. They're a very solid defense. But it's not been at the same heights. People have had their way with them at various times, including abject offensive teams like the Patriots, for example. So those types of disappointing losses have mounted up. And I agree with Brian when he says this is a must win, because if they don't win it, then they are a game or two back on the Dolphins. They'll drop to 7-6, actually. Sorry. So the Dolphins will be at 8-5. The other two teams, the Browns, will now be at 10 wins, and the Colts will be at 9-4. So that stretch for that wild card becomes more difficult for them. Yes, they've got the talent. Lamar still needs to get better at throwing the ball downfield and throwing outside the numbers. And that's the biggest trick and issue for the Ravens. But if they can run on a team, of course, with the players they've got, they can gash them left, right, and centre. But we haven't seen it consistently enough, and they've got to show a lot more to even get up to the right base camp before they can think of going up higher. Otherwise, quoth the Raven, nevermore, as Edgar Allan Poe used to say.
They almost remind me of your T-shirt, the Golden State Warriors. They've got up, they've went down. So Patriots fan, the Warriors fan, Mark. And anyway, I'll come back to that.
I have a Warriors T-shirt, Michael. That's about it. I visit the West Coast from time to time. So
I am joking. A lovely team. I love Steph Curry. Going back to this team, however, lads, the Curry's not mixing for this team this year, unfortunately, lads. Shocking performance. And for me, for me as a Broncos fan, I look at Lamar Jackson in the offseason and I think, he could really beat Kansas City boys big time, and I'll take that, and I'll hope, as much as the Ravens broke my heart years ago in Denver, if they can beat the Chiefs, I'll take it. I'll take Lamar Jackson getting a couple of rings if it means Mahomes gets paid a massive amount of money and he doesn't have that legacy in Kansas City over 10 years, because until that happens, it hasn't happened yet. So yeah, they've disappointed me. Obviously sitting 7-5 in week 14 is disappointing. They've had their issues with COVID and with games being moved, but Lamar Jackson isn't playing to the level that he played at last season. I've been quite disappointed with Mark Andrews. Now, I'm a little bit biased. The tight end, he was brilliant last season. Really, really good. And if there was games where he didn't get a touchdown last season, he would at least get 50, 60, 70 yards or a couple of really important catches at very, very important times in the games. The reality is this season he hasn't done much. I think he actually got a touchdown in the first week of the season against the Browns. So it'll be interesting to see what he does tonight. However, I know some of you have done picks. So will we go again? Colin, do you want to go first? Who are you picking for this game?
It's a tight one, but I look at the schedule and I actually think that the Browns need to win it more because they have that game against the Steelers. Whereas you look at what the Ravens have, and as Brian pointed out, it's in their hands. They've got the easier kind of thing, and I think they'll look at that, and that I think it'll focus the Browns a bit more. I think you'll see similar to what they did last week against the Titans. They'll basically stack it up there, and they'll look to shut down the Ravens' run game, and they'll say to Jackson, "Beat us in the air," and they'll back themselves there. And I think that will just about be enough.
Yeah, Michael, you touched on it there that you're disappointed with the Ravens this season, that you felt that they'd be the leading challengers for the Chiefs. A lot of people expect them to be number one, if not number one, certainly number two seed. But if they do get on this run and get into the playoffs and become a wildcard team, they'll be a dangerous wildcard team. If they get to a championship game, albeit a wildcard, they still have a great team there that could potentially put it together and beat the Chiefs. I'm with the Ravens. I think the Ravens will win tonight. I think, I can see Colum's point around the Browns having to win more, but I think the Ravens will do enough to win.
Mark Andrews has been a disappointment because people have realised he's their number one receiving threat and they've game planned to take him out of the game. Bit like the way teams try to adapt to George Kittle in San Fran. They can't do the same with Travis Kelce in Kansas City because they have too many other weapons. But in Baltimore, they say, well, take him out and you take out basically Lamar's main weapon. I think the Browns have enough talent in their secondary to do that tonight. And I have the Browns to win and to knock the Bills out of the playoffs when they get there.
Well, I have the Ravens to win tonight. I think this is going to be the game where they really come out. I know they're sitting at 7-5, but I have Lamar Jackson to have his best game of the season so far. I have Mark Andrews to have his best game of the season so far. 2 touchdowns tonight, 85 yards. Lamar Jackson will have 4 passing touchdowns, 325 yards. And on the running ground as well, they get over 100 yards rushing. But really, really, really importantly, the last 4 games, including tonight for the Ravens, is the Browns, the Jaguars, or the Jaguars, the New York Football Giants, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Win. They're going to finish the season 11-5, and that makes it really interesting. But I don't know about the whole situation there about beating the Bills in the playoffs. Come on, man. And more importantly, before we go, I know it's a Thursday night football game, boys, but we also have a Saturday doubleheader. You can see that I've cropped that out of the edge very, very well. But a Saturday doubleheader, I'm very, very happy about that. As you can see, it's my beloved Denver Broncos taking on
your beloved Bills.
Watch out, can't lose this weekend.
Well, one of them has to.
You should get one of those half and half jerseys, Michael.
I like the county ones where it's like the sponsors are like, you know, watch this space. Lads, it's been a pleasure chatting to you tonight. Sorry for the Wi-Fi issues at the start. I hope the video at the start made up for it in that sense, but a pleasure to chat to you. We will be back, if we're allowed to be back after my Wi-Fi issues, on Thursday night at 9 p.m, building up to what promises to be a classic Thursday night football between the the LA Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders. Things change so quickly. We've got the Chargers and stuff as well. Sorry about the Raiders pick last night, boys, but that's it for now. Everybody have a good Monday night and enjoy Monday Night Football, lads. Cheers.
Thank you.
See you later.